Science Unit 2 Assessment. So before we get into the twins, you have to know a few things first. You have to know that DNA is made out of proteins and nucleotides. That DNA determines every trait in our body, whether it's a phenotype or a genotype. The DNA, proteins, and nucleotides from nucleotide bases come in 4 different letters: A, C, G, and T. These nucleotide bases align themselves into a double helix shape, forming the DNA. This correlates with the twins because it builds up their skin color trait. Yeah, you should probably know that what a phenotype and a genotype is. So a phenotype is a physical trait and a genotype is a genetic trait. You have to know these classifications to know what I'm talking about. You should probably also know what transcription is and what translation is. Transcription is when DNA is transcribed into RNA to use as instructions for what the rest of the cell is supposed to do. And translation is when the RNA is received and translated to be used as instructions. Meiosis versus mitosis. Meiosis is when a diploid cell divides itself into unique haploid gametes. Meiosis has 2 stages and 5 phases. Mitosis is when a single diploid cell duplicates itself infinitely into exact replicas of itself. It also has 5 phases. Here are the 5 phases of mitosis. So it begins with the interphase, which is just kind of the in-between of the cell phases. The prophase is when the chromosomes condense and the cell envelope begins to break down with the nucleus, preparing it for the metaphase, which is when the chromosomes line up along the center of the cell, which leads into the anaphase, where the chromosomes split in half. And finally, the telophase and cytokinesis, which is when the cell actually splits into 2. The 5 phases of meiosis are very similar to that of mitosis, but I mean, one has 2 phases, and the chromosomes inside of the cell, they split into unique variations of each other in each cell. So like they have different amounts of each chromosome. You should know mitosis and meiosis because it explains how cells turn into like the skin cells of the girls and how the alleles in them were like divided between them in the anaphase. You should know mutations. There are 3 types of mutations. Substitution, which is when a cell's nucleotide base is replaced with another one, and the 2 frameshift mutations, which is insertion and deletion, when a nucleotide base is randomly added or deleted from DNA. An example of a DNA mutation is like what happens with the double-muscled cattle. Their DNA suffers from frameshift mutation and creates a premature stop codon in their DNA. This messes up how the RNA is produced, and the RNA doesn't stop. Because of that, its muscles don't stop growing because the RNA doesn't tell it to. Normally, when a mutation occurs, it doesn't affect the DNA at all because different combinations of nucleotide bases can still create the same protein. Sometimes, though, if the mutation is severe enough, it can affect the protein synthesis process. Because the DNA is incorrect, the mRNA will be incorrect. Because of that, the tRNA reads the incorrect mRNA and creates the wrong protein. You need to know mutations because maybe there's a mutation in the girl's skin cells that made them this way, one white and one black. Now to the main topic, the twins. What's unique about these twins is that their skin color phenotypes are different. The twins are both colors because both their parents had different alleles. It might have been if W is white and B is black, homozygous W and heterozygous B, because then it would have been 50% a white child and 50% a mostly black child. Same for most of the other traits, like hair color, eye color, hair type. I don't know exactly which traits were dominant, but I'm assuming that the father's trait is recessive and the mother's trait is dominant for skin color, because that would make sense. Because one child is completely white and the other is brown. A Punnett square, that combination would look like this. Notice that the black allele is dominant and that the white alleles are recessive. Here you can really see that it's 50-50. That one child would be brown or black and that the other one would be white. And that's my understanding of all we learned in Unit 2. Thank you. The prophase is when the chromosomes condense. Get out, man.